Hey guys, tonight we slip into the sun-baked sandals of an Egyptian pharaoh, where the crown is heavy, the Nile is moody, and your divine status comes with a to-do list longer than a pyramid's shadow. Picture yourself standing on a palace balcony, the air thick with heat and the scent of lotus flowers, while below, the Nile glints like a lazy serpent under the dawn. You're not just a king, you're a living god, or so they say. Every move you make is watched by priests, nobles, and probably a few nosy crocodiles. One wrong step, and you're not surviving the court gossip, let alone the afterlife. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, and it's not even 5 a.m., but the palace is already buzzing like a hive of over-caffeinated bees. Your bed, draped in linen finer than a modern silk sheet, feels like a trap. Servants hover, waiting to dress you, feed you, and remind you of your divine duties. You're not just a person, you're Egypt's heartbeat, the one who keeps the gods happy and the Nile flowing. Sounds glamorous, right? Except the pressure is like carrying a pyramid on your shoulders. Your first task is to greet the sunrise with prayers to Ra, the sun god, because if you don't, the whole country might blame you for a cloudy day. You trudge to the temple, bare feet slapping cool stone, while priests chant in a monotone that could lull you back to sleep if it weren't so early. Being a pharaoh isn't just about looking regal. You're the glue holding Egypt together, a role cemented by centuries of tradition. Mainstream history tells us pharaohs were seen as divine intermediaries, linking the mortal world to the gods, a belief that started as early as 3100 BCE, with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. Your every action, eating, marrying, even sneezing has cosmic significance. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs were so paranoid about their divine image that they banned artists from drawing their flaws. Got a crooked nose? Not in your statues. Historians still argue whether this was vanity or a calculated move to maintain divine perfection in the eyes of the people. You shuffle through the palace, dodging servants offering breakfast bread, figs, and beer, because apparently water is too boring for a god king. The air smells of baked clay and incense, a mix that's oddly comforting yet suffocating. Your advisors are already circling, whispering about grain shortages or a grumpy no-march in the south. You're supposed to solve it all, but you're barely awake. And let's not talk about the royal kilt stiff, starched, and about as comfy as wearing a cardboard box. Joke number 1. You wonder if the gods invented linen just to make pharaohs itch for eternity. The palace itself is a maze of painted columns and hieroglyphs, each one screaming your greatness, but it's also a cage. You can't just pop out for a Nile cruise without a dozen guards and a priest muttering omens. Your life is scripted, from the moment you open your eyes to the second you collapse into bed, only to do it all again tomorrow. The weight of being divine is real. Every decision, every word, is judged by mortals and gods alike. You're not just ruling, you're performing, and the audience is everyone. Your first big meeting of the day looms. A council of nobles who smile to your face but probably sharpen their daggers behind your back. You take a deep breath, adjust your heavy gold collar, and step into the chaos, knowing this is just the start of why being a pharaoh was no sunlit picnic. You pass a wall carving of your predecessor, all serene and godlike, and wonder if they felt this overwhelmed. Probably. The servants bow low, their shaved heads gleaming, and you nod back, trying to look like you've got it all under control. Spoiler, you don't. The day's schedule includes offerings to Amun, a dispute over land taxes, and a report on the Nile's water levels. If the river doesn't flood right, you're the one they'll blame, not the weather. You smirk, thinking of modern meteorologists imagine them trying to predict the Nile with papyrus and prayers. Joke 2. Your weather app would just say, "Pray harder, dude." The reality of being a pharaoh hits hard. You're not just a ruler, you're a symbol, a scapegoat, and a servant all at once. The people love you, sure, but only as long as the harvests are good and the gods seem happy. One bad flood, one lost battle, and suddenly you're the worst god king since that guy who tried to ban beef because a cow looked at him funny. You head toward the throne room, the air growing warmer as the sun climbs. Your sandals scuff the floor, and you can't help but wish for a day off. But pharaohs don't get vacations, only eternity, if you play your cards right. And that's a big if. You're barely through the morning prayers when it's time to play dress up, and not the fun kind. The palace dressing chamber is a swirl of activity, servants scurrying like ants with armfuls of linen and gold. You stand still as they wrap you in a kilt so starched it could stand on its own. And then comes the heavy stuff. A broad collar necklace that feels like a stack of dinner plates, and a headdress that's basically a sculpture of your divine status. The air smells of myrrh and sweat, and the mirror-polished bronze not exactly HD shows a version of you that's more statue than human. Being a pharaoh means looking the part, but good luck staying cool under all this bling. The sun's already baking Memphis, and you're wrapped up like a royal burrito. Joke 1. You're pretty sure the gods invented this outfit to test your endurance, not your divinity. The regalia isn't just fashion, it's a walking billboard of your power. Mainstream history notes that pharaohs wore elaborate costumes to reinforce their divine image, with the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt symbolizing unity since the first dynasty around 3100 BCE. The blue and gold Nemes headdress, like the one you're sweating under, was a must for public appearances, screaming, "I'm chosen by the gods." But here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs used wigs made of human hair or palm fiber to bulk up their headdresses, because apparently even gods needed a little volume. Historians still argue whether these wigs were purely symbolic or a sneaky way to hide a bald spot. You adjust the heavy gold pectoral, its inlaid lapis lazuli glinting like a starry night. It's beautiful, sure, but it's also digging into your collarbone. The servants fan you with ostrich feathers, which sounds luxurious until you realize the breeze is barely enough to stir the stifling air. You're supposed to embody Ra, Amun, and Horus all at once, but right now, you feel more like a guy who needs a cold drink and a nap. The weight of the regalia isn't just physical, it's a reminder that every step you take is watched, judged, and probably gossiped about in the marketplace. You can almost hear the vendors now. Did you see the pharaoh's new necklace? Betty can't even lift his head. As you shuffle toward the throne room, the clink of your jewelry echoes off the painted walls, where hieroglyphs praise your greatness. It's flattering, but also a bit much like having your LinkedIn profile carved in stone for eternity. The throne itself is a beast, gilded and carved with falcons and cobras, designed to make you look untouchable. You sit, trying not to wince as the hard edges dig into your back. The court assembles, a sea of bowed heads and calculating eyes. Your vizier, a wiry man with a face like a grumpy cat, starts droning about grain quotas. You nod, pretending you're not daydreaming about a simpler life, maybe as a scribe who gets to sit in the shade all day. The regalia's symbolism keeps you trapped. Every bead, every amulet, ties you to the gods and the people's expectations. You're not just wearing a crown, you're wearing Egypt's entire history. The double crown for Lower Egypt, white for Upper, feels like it's squeezing your skull. A constant reminder of the two lands you're supposed to keep united. Joke 2. You wonder if the crown's designer ever considered adding a cushion, or if suffering was just part of the divine package. Your skin prickles under the linen, and you're tempted to scratch, but 100 eyes are on you. The servants keep fanning, but it's like trying to cool a furnace with a paper fan. You catch a whiff of the Nile through an open window, all damp into a royal sauna. You're a god king, but you're still human, and the heat's got you wondering if you can decree air conditioning into existence. You can't, of course, but you can decree that the court session starts. So you raise your scepter, another heavy, gaudy Prapan signal, the vizier to get on with it. The day's only begun, and you're already dreaming of the afterlife, where hopefully the dress code is more relaxed. You're seated on that gilded throne, the one that looks majestic but feels like a stone bench designed to ruin your spine. The throne room hums with tension, the air thick with incense and the sharper scent of ambition. Nobles line the walls, their linen robes crisp, their eyes darting like vipers sizing up prey. You're the pharaoh, the divine ruler, but these courtiers are playing a game of power that makes your crown feel like a target. Every smile hides a scheme, every bow a calculation. You're not just ruling Egypt, you're dodging political landmines while trying to look like you've got it all under control. Joke 1. It's like being the CEO of a company where everyone's secretly updating their resume and eyeing your chair. The court is a nest of intrigue, and you're the center of it. Mainstream history confirms that Egyptian pharaohs faced constant power struggles, with nobles and regional governors nomarchs vying for influence, especially during the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BCE, when central authority often wobbled. Your vizier, the guy who's supposed to be your right hand, is rattling off reports about a nomarch in Thebes who's forgotten to send his full tax quota. Again, you can't just fire him, his family controls half the southern grain supply. One wrong move, and you've got a rebellion on your hands. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some nobles kept pet baboons, not just for show but to train them as spies, eavesdropping on rivals' whispered plots. Historians still argue whether these baboons were effective or just chaotic pets that added to the palace's circus vibe. You lean forward, scepter in hand, trying to look regal while your kilt sticks to your thighs in the heat. The vizier's voice drones on, but you're scanning the room, picking out the players. There's the high priest of Amun, his shaved head gleaming, his loyalty as slippery as a Nile eel. Over there, a noblewoman with a fan of ostrich feathers, her smile too wide to trust. She's probably angling for her son to marry into your family, securing her line's future. You've got to keep them all in check, reward loyalty, punish disloyalty, but never let them see you sweat. Easier said than done when your headdress weighs as much as a small child. The air shifts as a messenger scurries in, kneeling so low his nose grazes the floor. He babbles about a border skirmish in Nubia, and suddenly the room's attention snaps to you. They're waiting for your reaction, testing if you're the god king they're supposed to worship or just a guy in a fancy hat. You keep your face stone calm, channeling every stoic statue you've ever seen, but inside, you're calculating. Send troops? Negotiate? Ignore it? And hope it goes away? Joke 2. You're pretty sure ignore it isn't in the Pharaoh's handbook, but it's tempting when your inbox is basically all of Egypt's problems. You issue a vague command to strengthen the borders, buying time to think. The nobles nod, but you catch a few exchanged glances scheming already. The palace is a chessboard, and you're the king, but sometimes it feels like the pawns are out to get you. You remember that nomarch's forgotten taxes and wonder if he's funding a private army. Or maybe he's just lazy. Either way, you'll need to send a trusted scribe to snoop, preferably one who doesn't get distracted by Thebes' famous date wine. The day drags on, and you're stuck mediating disputes that feel like ancient soap operas. A landowner swears his neighbor stole his irrigation canal's water. Another noble wants a temple built to honor his family, not yours. You nod, make promises you half mean, and try not to yawn. The incense smoke curls upward, making your eyes water, and you're tempted to decree an open window, but that'd probably offend some god or another. Joke 3. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't sneeze without sparking a theological debate. You're exhausted, and it's not even noon. The nobles keep talking, their voices blending into a hum that's almost soothing, like the Nile's lapping waves. But you can't relax not when every word could be a veiled threat. You grip your scepter tighter, its gold warm under your palm, and brace for the next round of palace politics. That nomarch in Thebes is still on your mind, and you're starting to think those baboon spies might not be such a bad idea after all. You're finally free of the throne room's scheming nobles. But don't get too comfy now, you're trudging through a temple's dim corridors, the air heavy with frankincense and the weight of divine expectations. Your sandals slap against polished stone, echoing like a metronome in the flickering torchlight. As Pharaoh, you're not just a king but a high priest, expected to keep the gods happy so Egypt doesn't fall apart. Today's agenda? Hours of rituals to appease Amun, Ra, and a dozen other deities who apparently need constant attention. You're muttering prayers under your breath, trying not to trip over your kilt, while priests watch you like hawks. One mischant, and they'll whisper, "You've angered the heavens." Joke 1. It's like performing a cosmic PowerPoint presentation, but the projector's always broken. The role of divine intermediary is no small thing. Mainstream history tells us pharaohs were central to Egypt's religious life, conducting rituals to maintain Astric Mart, cosmic order since the Old Kingdom, around 2600 BCE. You're the bridge between gods and mortals, and every offering, every bow, is meant to keep chaos at bay. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some rituals involve tossing bread into the Nile to feed the river god Happy, as if he's a giant celestial goldfish. Historians still argue whether these offerings were symbolic, or if priests genuinely believed the gods were chowing down on soggy loaves. You kneel before a towering statue of Amun, its gold eyes glinting in the half-light. The altar's piled with lotus flowers, their sweet scent mixing with the acrid burn of myrrh. You're supposed to feel divine, but mostly you feel your knees aching against the cold floor. The head priest, a wiry man with a voice like a creaky door, hands you a bronze censer. You swing it gently, letting smoke curl upward, and recite a prayer you've memorized since you were a kid. The words are soothing, rhythmic, but you're distracted by the priest's side-eye. He's probably judging your pronunciation. You wonder if Amun cares about your accent or if he's just happy for the incense. The temple's walls are carved with scenes of past pharaohs, all looking far more serene than you feel. You offer a bowl of wine, pouring it into a stone basin as the priests chant. The liquid glints red, like a sunset caught in a cup, and you can't help but wish you could drink it instead. Your stomach growls breakfast was hours ago, and god kings don't get snack breaks. Joke 2. You bet Ra invented fasting just to make pharaohs dream of fig cakes during rituals. The rituals drag on, each one more elaborate than the last. You sprinkle sacred water, burn papyrus inscribed with hymns, and wave a scepter that's starting to feel like a dumbbell. The priests keep pace, their voices a low hum that could lull you to sleep if you weren't so paranoid about messing up. One wrong move, and the harvest fails, sir, so they'll claim. The pressure's relentless, and you're starting to understand why some pharaohs built bigger temples. Maybe they were just trying to bribe the gods for a day off. You move to the next shrine, this one for Hathor, goddess of love and music. You offer her a sistrum, a rattle-like instrument that jangles like a tambourine. The sound's supposed to please her, but it's giving you a headache. The priests nod approvingly, but you catch a younger one stifling a yawn. At least you're not the only one fighting to stay awake. You think back to that throne room drama, member, those nobles with their fake smiles. You're starting to suspect the priests aren't much better. They're loyal to the gods, sure, but also to their own power. If you slip up, they'll be the first to whisper you've lost divine favor. As you light another bundle of incense, the smoke stings your eyes, and you blink back tears. The temple feels like a sauna now, the air thick and warm. You're supposed to be communing with the divine, but you're mostly wondering how many more offerings before you can escape to the palace. Joke 3. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't fake a sick day to skip church. You glance at the statue of Hathor, her cow-eared face serene, and silently beg for a break. But the gods, like the priests, don't seem to care about your schedule. You take a deep breath, adjust your heavy collar, and move on to the next ritual, knowing the heaven-sand Egyptaire watching. You've barely shaken off the temple's incense haze when you're whisked to the riverbank, where the Nile stretches before you like a glassy ribbon under the midday sun. The air smells of mud and reeds, and a crowd of farmers and priests has gathered, their faces tight with worry. The Nile's flood season is coming, and everyone's looking at you like you personally control the water levels. Spoiler: you don't. If the river doesn't flood just right, too low, crops fail; too high, villages drown, you're the one they'll point fingers at. Your divine status makes you a cosmic weatherman, and the forecast is always your fault. Joke 1. It's like being blamed for a rainy picnic, except the picnic is Egypt's entire food supply. The Nile's annual flood was the backbone of ancient Egyptian life, a fact mainstream history hammers home. From around 3000 BCE, the inundation cycle dictated agriculture, with rich silt feeding the fields. As pharaoh, you're expected to ensure the gods deliver that perfect flood. You stand on a wooden platform, your heavy regalia member, that neck-crushing collar, glinting in the sun. Priests chant, waving papyrus fans, while you toss an offering of grain into the river. It's supposed to coax Hapi, the flood god, into cooperating. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs reportedly threw in gold trinkets too, as if Hapi needed a little bling to get motivated. Historians still argue whether these offerings were heartfelt or just a desperate attempt to look like you had the gods on speed dial. The crowd watches, their murmurs rising like the river itself. You can feel their hope, their fear, pinning you in place. A farmer with sun-cracked hands clutches a staff, his eyes locked on the water. If the flood's off, his family starves, and you're the one who'll hear about it in angry petitions. You raise your arms, mimicking the priest's gestures, and pray the Nile behaves. The water laps gently, giving nothing away. You're supposed to be divine, but right now, you feel like a guy tossing coins into a fountain, hoping for a miracle. The sun beats down, and your kilt's linen is sticking to your legs again. You're tempted to dunk your head in the Nile, but that'd probably spark a rumor you're communing with crocodiles. Joke 2. You wonder if Happy takes bribes, because you'd trade a pyramid for a decent flood right now. The priests keep chanting, their voices blending with the buzz of flies and the distant croak of frogs. You glance at the riverbank, where a kid is poking a stick into the mud, oblivious to the cosmic stakes. You envy him. He's not the one who'll get an earful if the crops wither. Your vizier sidles up, his face all business. He whispers about last year's flood too weak, left half the delta parched. The nomarchs are already grumbling, and you remember that shady one from Thebes, probably hoarding grain while blaming you. You nod, keeping your face neutral, but inside, you're screaming. The Nile's whims aren't your fault, but try telling that to a starving village. You toss another handful of grain into the water, watching it swirl away. The crowd cheers, thinking you've done something holy, but you're just hoping you don't have to do this again tomorrow. The ritual drags on, with more offerings and more prayers. Your arms ache from waving scepters, and the sun's turning your headdress into a portable oven. A heron flaps by, its wings slicing the still air, and you wish you could fly off too. But you're stuck, playing the divine middleman between a fickle river and a desperate people. Joke 3. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't blame the weather app for a bad day. You catch a priest's eye, and he nods approvingly. But you're not fooled. If the Nile doesn't deliver, they'll be the first to whisper you've lost the gods' favor. You take a deep breath, the river's damp scent filling your lungs, and brace for the next ritual, knowing Egypt's survivorland your reputation hangs on a flood you can't control. You're back in the palace now, the Nile's muddy scent still clinging to your skin as you step into the chaos of the royal harem. The air is thick with perfumea's mine, myrrh, and something sweeter, like overripe figs. Laughter and soft music drift through the courtyard, where your wives and concubines lounge under palm frond canopies. It sounds like a paradise, right? Wrong. This place is a labyrinth of ambition, jealousy, and whispered plots, and you're the prize, the target. Every smile hides a motive, every glance a scheme. You're supposed to keep the peace while ensuring your bloodline thrives, but one misstep, and you're dodging daggers, literal or otherwise. Joke 1. It's like managing a reality show, except the drama's real and the eliminations aren't always metaphorical. The harem was a cornerstone of pharaonic life, a fact mainstream history underscores. By the New Kingdom around 1500 BCE, pharaohs like Ramses II had dozens of wives and concubines, producing heirs to secure the dynasty and alliances. You've got your great royal wife, the queen whose son should inherit, but the other secondary wives, foreign princesses, are all angling for their kids to wear the crown. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some concubines used love potions made from crushed lotus petals, and yes, crocodile dung, believing it could sway your favor. Historians still argue whether these potions were symbolic gestures, or if desperate women actually thought dung was the key to your heart. You weave through the courtyard, your gold sandals clicking on the tiles. A Mitannian princess, sent to seal a treaty, offers you a cup of pomegranate wine, her eyes sharp as she gauges your mood. You sip cautiously, aware that accidents happen in harems. Another wife, an Egyptian noble's daughter, is playing a harp, her fingers dancing over the strings, but you catch her glancing at the Mitannian with a look that could curdle milk. You're supposed to be the divine lover, but mostly you're a referee, in a game where everyone's playing for keeps. Your great royal wife, draped in linen so fine it's practically transparent, beckons you over. She's your partner in power, but even she's got her own agenda. Her son's your heir, and she'll do anything to keep it that way. You sit on a cushioned bench, the air cooling as servants fan you with ostrich feathers. The music's soothing, but the tension's not. You overhear a whisper about a concubine bribing a servant to slip something into a rival's food. Poison? A laxative? You don't want to find out. You signal your trusted guard, a hulking man with a scar like a crescent moon, to keep an eye on things. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means your love life comes with more plot twists than a soap opera, and way less popcorn. You try to focus on the harp's melody, but your mind's on the bigger picture. The harem isn't just about romance, it's politics. Every child born here could strengthen an alliance or spark a feud. That Mitannian princess? Her father's a king who'll expect her son to get special treatment. The Egyptian noble's daughter? Her family controls half the delta's grain. You're juggling their ambitions while trying to keep your dynasty intact. You think back to the Nile ritual, remember that grain you tossed to Hapi? You're starting to feel like you're tossing your sanity into this harem's chaos too. A young concubine approaches, offering a lotus flower, her smile too sweet to trust. You accept it, but your fingers linger on the stem, checking for hidden thorns. The harem's beauty is a trap, a glittering cage where loyalty is as rare as a cool breeze. You glance at your great royal wife, who's watching the concubine like a hawk. You're supposed to be a god, but right now, you're just a man trying not to spark a royal catfight. Joke 3. You wonder if the gods invented harems to remind pharaohs that even divinity can't handle a room full of exes. You rise, nodding to the women, and head for the palace's quieter halls. Knowing the harem's intrigues will follow you like a shadow. You've escaped the harem's perfumed chaos, but there's no rest for a pharaoh now you're knee-deep in the obsession that haunts every ruler, your afterlife. You're standing in a torchlit chamber beneath the palace, the air cool and musty, like a forgotten cellar. Architects and priests surround you, unrolling papyrus plans for your tomb, a sprawling complex meant to secure your eternal glory. Every detail chambers, traps, treasuresis your responsibility, because if your mummy's not comfy in the afterlife, you're basically screwed for eternity. The weight of immortality presses harder than that gold collar you're still wearing. Joke 1. It's like planning your dream home, except the Fi's non-existent, and the neighbors are all dead. Tombs were a pharaoh's ultimate flex, a fact mainstream history drives home. Since the Old Kingdom, around 2600 BCE, rulers like Khufu poured resources into massive burial complexes, like the Great Pyramid, to ensure their spirit thrived in the afterlife. You're sketching out a labyrinth of chambers, each one to be filled with gold, food, and shabti figurines to serve you in the next world. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs included model boats in their tombs, hoping to sail the cosmic Nile with the gods, as if eternity needed a yacht. Historians still argue whether these boats were symbolic, or if you genuinely thought you'd need a paddle in the afterlife. You trace a finger over the papyrus, eyeing the planned false corridors to fool tomb robbers. The architect, a nervous man with ink-stained hands, points out where your sarcophagus will sit, surrounded by spells carved in hieroglyphs. The priests nod, muttering about Osiris and the field of reeds, but you're distracted by the cost. Gold, alabaster, thousands of workersits, a budget that'd make a modern CEO faint. You're supposed to be divine, but right now, you're just a guy wondering if you can afford eternity. The torches flicker, casting shadows that dance like ghosts, and you shiver despite the heavy linen kilt. The head priest hands you a clay model of a shabti, a tiny servant statue meant to do your chores in the afterlife. It's cute, in a creepy way, but you're not sure 200 of them will be enough to keep your eternal estate running. You think back to the harem's drama member, that Mitannian princess's sharp-eyed smile. You half wish you could send a shabti to deal with her instead of you. The architect drones on about ventilation shafts, but your mind's on the bigger picture. If your tomb's not perfect, your car might wander, lost forever. No pressure, right? You nod at the plans, trying to look confident, but the details are dizzying. Trapdoors to crush thieves, hidden rooms for your favorite chariots, and don't forget the sacred oils to keep your mummy fresh. Joke 2. You're starting to think the afterlife's just a cosmic HOA with stricter rules than Memphis. The priests keep chanting, their voices a low hum that's almost soothing. but you're too stressed to relax. Every decision here is a gamble. Build too big, and you bankrupt the treasury. Build too small, and the gods might snub you. A servant offers you a cup of date wine, and you sip it, savoring the brief sweetness. The chamber feels smaller now, the stone walls closing in like the weight of your legacy. You glance at the papyrus again, spotting a sketch of your sarcophagus, carved with your face in serene perfection. It's flattering, but also a reminder. You're planning your own funeral while still alive. Joke 3. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who gets performance anxiety about your own death. You hand the model shabti back, its cold clay grounding you, and signal the architect to continue. The afterlife's waiting, and you've got to make sure it's ready for you, because the gods, like those nobles back in the throne room, aren't known for second chances. You're out of the tomb planning chamber, but there's no time to catch your breath now. You're rattling across the desert in a chariot, the sun scorching your shoulders as you lead a military patrol toward Egypt's southern border. The air smells of dust and leather, and the creak of wooden wheels mixes with the snorts of horses. You're not just a divine ruler, you're a warrior, king, expected to keep invaders at bay and remind everyone you're tougher than your gilded throne suggests. Sand stings your face, and your skin's already chapped despite the servant's best efforts with oils. Joke 1. It's like a road trip, except your GPS is a grumpy general, and your snacks are dates that taste like regret. Military campaigns were a pharaoh's duty, a fact mainstream history emphasizes. During the New Kingdom, around 1500 BCE, rulers like Thutmose III led armies to secure Egypt's borders against Nubians, Libyans, and others, expanding trade routes and tribute. You're inspecting fortifications near Nubia, where raiders have been harassing trade caravans. Your chariot bounces over dunes, and you grip the reins, trying not to look like you're holding on for dear life. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs slathered their skin with a mix of honey and natron to fend off sunburn, a DIY sunscreen that probably attracted more flies than it repelled. Historians still argue whether this was practical or just a sticky way to feel divine. Your general, a grizzled man with a scar like a lightning bolt across his cheek, points to a crumbling fort. You nod, squinting through the haze, and try to ignore the sweat trickling under your heavy kilt. The soldiers around you, bronze spears glinting, linen tunics already dust-stained, look to you for confidence. You're supposed to inspire them, but the heat's making you dream of the palace's shaded courtyards. You shout an order to reinforce the walls, your voice half lost in the wind, and the men snap to it. You're a god king, but out here, you're also a Targetivary arrow aimed at Egypt. Might as well have your name on it. The desert stretches endless, a sea of gold that burns your eyes. You think back to the Nile's cool waters. Remember that grain you tossed to Happy? You'd trade a whole granary for a dip right now. Your chariot lurches, and you nearly lose your balance, earning a smirk from a young soldier. You glare back, but secretly, you're impressed he's got the energy to be cheeky in this heat. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't call in sick for a sunburn. You halt near a wadi, a dry riverbed that's more cracks than water. The general drones about troop placements, but you're scanning the horizon for dust clouds. Raiders move fast, and you're not in the mood for surprises. Your skin feels like it's baking, despite that honey natron paste you tried. It's gritty, smells weird, and definitely isn't winning any beauty awards. The soldiers are watching, waiting for your next move. You point to a hill, decreeing a new watchtower, and they cheer, though you suspect it's more for shade breaks than your brilliance. The patrol continues, and you're counting the hours until you can ditch the chariot for a bath. A hawk circles overhead, its cry sharp against the desert silence, and you wonder if it's Horus, your divine ancestor, or just a bird laughing at your chapped lips. Joke 3. You're pretty sure the gods invented deserts to make pharaohs appreciate palace fans more. You tug the reins, guiding your chariot back toward camp, the sun still blazing, and brace for the next report. War's never far off, and neither is the sand that somehow worked its way into every fold of your kilt. You're back from the dusty desert patrol, your skin still stinging from the sun, but there's no time to soak in a lotus-scented bath. Now you're in the palace's great hall, surrounded by piles of papyrus scrolls and a gaggle of scribes who smell faintly of ink and anxiety. As pharaoh, you're the taxman-in-chief, responsible for squeezing Egypt's wealth out of farmers, traders, and grumpy nomarchs without sparking a revolt. The air's thick with the scent of dried reeds and wax seals, and the scribes' quills scratch like nervous crickets. You're supposed to keep the treasury full, but every tax collector's report feels like a plea for you to fix their mess. Joke 1. It's like running a lemonade stand where everyone demands free refills and threatens to riot. Taxation was the engine of ancient Egypt's economy, a fact mainstream history confirms. By the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BCE, pharaohs relied on a complex system of grain taxes, labor levies, and trade tariffs to fund temples, armies, and those fancy tombs you're obsessing over. You're poring over a scroll detailing last season's grain haul, which is suspiciously low from that Theban nomarch remember his forgotten taxes. Your vizier, his face pinched like he's bitten a sour date, suggests sending inspectors. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some tax evaders hid grain in fake tombs, hoping the gods' wrath would scare off auditors. Historians still argue whether this was clever or just a desperate gamble that fooled no one. You lean back on your ebony chair, its lion head armrests digging into your elbows. A scribe stammers through a report about a Delta village refusing to pay, claiming a bad harvest. You're supposed to be sympathetic, but you know half these excuses are as old as the pyramids. You decree a tax break for the village generosity makes you look divine, but you also order a spy to check their granaries. The scribes nod, scribbling furiously, while you sip barley beer from a gold-rimmed cup. It's warm, flat, and reminds you why you'd kill for a modern fridge. The hall's painted walls, alive with scenes of bountiful harvests, mock the reality. You're juggling numbers that decide who eats and who starves, all while keeping the nobles happy and the gods appeased. You think back to the Nile's flood. Remember that grain you tossed to Happy? If only taxes were that easy to collect. A merchant's petition lands on your desk, whining about trade duties on Nubian ivory. You're tempted to tell him to take it up with the crocodiles, but instead, you grant a small exemption, hoping he'll spread word of your benevolence. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't dodge taxes by claiming, "The Nile ate my homework." Another scroll arrives, this one about a peasant uprising in a southern nome. They're mad about labor levies for your tomb's construction fair, since hauling limestone in this heat isn't exactly a party. You rub your temples, the weight of that double crown feeling heavier than ever. You order food relief sent south, but you know it's a bandage on a bigger wound. The people love you when the granaries are full, but one lean year, and you're the villain. The scribes keep writing, their reed pens scratching like a lullaby, but you're too stressed to doze off. A breeze slips through the hall's high windows, carrying the faint scent of the Nile. You glance at a wall relief of a pharaoh, probably your great-granddad receiving tribute like it's no big deal. You envy his carved serenity. Your vizier whispers about raising taxes on wine imports, but you're distracted by a memory of that harem. Drama those scheming concubines would probably tax your sanity if they could. Joke 3. You're starting to think the gods invented taxes to make sure even pharaohs hate paperwork. You sign off on the wine tax, hoping it doesn't spark a riot among Memphis's tavern owners, and brace for the next scroll. Egypt's wealth is your burden, and it's heavier than any pyramid. You're finally out of the tax scroll slog, but don't expect a Brino. You're in the palace's reception hall, where the air smells of foreign spices and diplomatic tension. Envoys from distant lands, Hittites, Mitannians, maybe even some shifty Canaanites stand before you, their robes stiff with embroidery, their smiles as trustworthy as a Nile crocodile's. You're perched on your throne, scepter in hand, trying to look like you've got the world on a leash. Your job? Keep these allies sweet, fend off enemies, and make sure Egypt doesn't look weak. It's a high-stakes poker game, and you're bluffing with a divine poker face. Joke 1. It's like hosting a dinner party where everyone's secretly checking for poison in their wine. Diplomacy was a pharaoh's tightrope, a fact mainstream history underscores. By the New Kingdom around 1400 BCE, Egypt's empire relied on treaties and tribute from neighbors, like the famous peace deal with the Hittites under Ramses II. You're greeting a Mitannian envoy maybe, a relative of that harem princess, remember her, who's offering lapis lazuli and vague promises of loyalty. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some envoys brought exotic animals, like cheetahs or baboons, as gifts, hoping to dazzle you while their kings plotted behind your back. Historians still argue whether these gifts were genuine gestures or just distractions from shady deals. The envoy bows low, his beard brushing the floor, and you nod, keeping your expression as unreadable as a sphinx. His words drip with flattery, calling you son of Ra, but you're watching his hands, wondering if he's hiding a dagger or just a sweaty palm. You offer a gold bracelet in return, a calculated show of wealth, but your mind's racing. Mitanni's been cozy with the Hittites lately, and you don't trust their king not to stab you in the back figuratively, you hope. The hall's columns, painted with lotus flowers, seem to lean in, trapping the tension. You signal a servant to bring wine, and the room fills with the clink of cups. The Canaanite envoy, a wiry man with eyes like a hawk, starts whining about trade routes. You listen, nodding, but you're thinking about that Nubian skirmish from your desert patrol. Remember the chapped skin and dusty chariots. If these envoys sense weakness, they'll pounce like jackals. You promise the Canaanite safer routes, but only if he doubles his grain tribute. He hesitates, then agrees, his smile tighter than your kilt. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't roll your eyes at a bad deal. The Mitannian envoy steps forward again, offering a scroll sealed with clay. It's a marriage proposal, another princess for your harem, because apparently you need more drama. You think of that lotus and dung potion from the harem and wonder if it's too late to fake an allergy. You accept the scroll, promising to consider it, which is diplomatic for not a chance unless it saves Egypt. The air's getting warmer, the incense smoke curling like a warning. You're juggling alliances, egos, and the constant fear of looking soft. The priests in the corner, watching like vultures, will report any slip-up to the temples, claiming the gods disapprove. A Nubian envoy, tall and draped in leopard skin, presents a carved ivory tusk. You admire it, but you're really wondering if Nubia's planning another raid. You thank him, your voice smooth as the Nile, and decree a feast to honor your friends. The envoys cheer, but you know it's all a show. Joke 3. You're pretty sure diplomacy was invented to make pharaohs miss the simplicity of chariot battles, as servants hustle to prepare the feast. You lean back, the throne's hard edges digging in, and brace for the next round of smiles and lies. Egypt's power depends on your poker face, and you're not folding yet. You've waved off the envoys with their fake smiles, but the palace offers no reprievino. You're trudging through a dusty construction site, the air thick with limestone grit and the shouts of workers. You're overseeing the latest grand project, a massive pyramid or temple that's supposed to scream your eternal glory. The sun's relentless, baking your shoulders, and the clatter of chisels and creaking ropes is giving you a headache. As Pharaoh, you're the ultimate project manager, but these builds come with endless headaches, worker strikes, supply shortages, and the constant fear it'll all collapse before you do. Joke 1. It's like renovating your house, except the budget's your entire kingdom and the deadline's eternity. Monumental construction was a hallmark of pharaonic rule, a fact mainstream history drives home. Since the Old Kingdom around 2600 BCE, pharaohs like Khufu built pyramids to secure their legacy, employing thousands of workers and vast resources. You're inspecting a half-finished obelisk, its granite surface gleaming but incomplete, while a foreman babbles about delayed shipments from Aswan. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some workers painted graffiti on hidden stones, whining about their bosses or boasting about their lunch-proof. Even ancient laborers had a sense of humor. Historians still argue whether these projects were powered by skilled, paid workers or coerced labor, a debate that's as heated as this desert sun. You squint at the obelisk, its shadow slicing across the sand like a sundial. Workers haul blocks with ropes, their muscles straining, and you can't help but feel a pang of guilt, your tombs eating their sweat and maybe their lives. You decree extra rations, hoping it keeps them from striking again. The foreman nods, but his eyes say he's heard it before. You're supposed to inspire awe, but right now, you're just a guy dodging complaints while your kilt collects dust. You think back to that tomb planning session, remember those shabty figurines? You wish you could summon a few to haul stones for you. The air smells of sweat and stone, and a breeze carries the distant rush of the Nile. You spot a worker sneaking a nap under a palm, and you almost envy him. Almost. Your vizier, trailing you like a shadow, whispers about budget overruns. The treasury's strained from taxes. Remember that Theban nomarch short payments? And this project's bleeding gold faster than a festival feast. You nod, pretending you've got a plan, but inside, you're wondering if the gods will accept a budget-friendly afterlife. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means your dream home comes with 1,000,000 foremen and 0 days off. A worker drops a chisel, the clang echoing, and you catch a few others muttering. Strikes have happened before, workers walking off, demanding better food or shorter hours. You can't blame them. Hauling limestone in this heat makes your chariot patrols seem like a spa day. You decree a rest day, earning a cheer, but you know the priests will grumble about delays. They want this temple done to honor Amun, but you're starting to think Amun's just happy watching you juggle chaos. The foreman points to a cracked block, blaming shoddy quarry work, and you rub your temples, the double crown feeling heavier than ever. You move along the site, your sandals crunching on gravel, and inspect a wall carved with your cartouche. It's flattering, but the workers' graffiti hidden where priests won't see tells the real story. Boss is a jerk, in ancient scrawl. You smirk, wondering if they mean you or the foreman. Joke 3. You're pretty sure the gods invented pyramids to remind pharaohs that even immortality comes with construction permits. You signal the vizier to wrap up the inspection, the sun still searing, and head back toward the palace, knowing this project's just one more weight on your divine shoulders. You're back in the palace, the dust of the construction site still clinging to your sandals. But there's no time to shake it off now. You're facing the priests again, and they're not here to chant your praises. The temple of Amun looms in your mind as you stand in a shadowed chamber, the air heavy with incense and the weight of their expectations. These priests, with their shaved heads and linen robes, hold more power than most nobles, and they know it. You're the pharaoh, the living god, but they're the ones pulling the spiritual strings, demanding your devotion to keep the gods and their influence happy. Joke 1. It's like working for a boss who claims they're just passing on messages from the CEO, except the CEO is a pantheon of moody deities. Priests were the backbone of Egypt's religious machine, a fact mainstream history confirms. By the New Kingdom around 1400 BCE, the priesthood of Amun at Karnak controlled vast wealth and land, rivaling even your treasury. You're meeting the high priest, a man with eyes like polished obsidian, who's pressing you to fund another wing for Amun's temple, and never mind the budget strain from that obelisk project. Here's a quirky tidbit. Priests sometimes used oracles, like sacred statues nodding, to answer questions, to sway your decisions, though everyone knew the statue's strings were pulled by clever hands. Historians still argue whether these oracles were genuine divine signals or just priestly stagecraft to keep pharaohs in check. You stand before a golden shrine, its surface etched with Amun's ram-headed glory. The high priest hands you a censer, and you swing it, letting myrrh smoke curl upward, stinging your eyes. You're supposed to feel holy, but mostly you feel like a prop in their ritual theater. The priests chant, their voices a low drone that could lull you to sleep if you weren't so aware of their agenda. They want more land, more gold, more power, all in the name of Amun. You nod, promising to consider their request, but you're thinking of that Theban nomarch's tax dodging, remember his forgotten quotas. You could use that gold right now. The chamber's walls are painted with scenes of pharaohs bowing to gods, a not-so-subtle reminder of who's really in charge here. You're the divine ruler, but the priests act like they've got a direct line to the heavens. You offer a bowl of wine to the shrine, the liquid splashing softly, and try not to wince as the high priest lectures you on Mart asterisk. He's saying the gods are restless, implying it's your fault. You think back to the Nile's flood ritual, remember tossing grain to Harpy? You're starting to feel like you're tossing your authority to these priests instead. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who can't tell the priests to take a hike without risking a divine HR complaint. You move to another altar, this one for Ptah, the creator god. The priests hand you a sistrum, its jangle grating on your nerves. You shake it, hoping Ptah's pleased, but you're distracted by a whisper. Another priest muttering about a bad omen, a hawk that flew the wrong way. You're tempted to roll your eyes, but 100 incense-fogged eyes are watching. You decree a festival to appease the gods, earning a murmur of approval, but you know it's just another expense. The priests smile, but it's the kind of smile that says they've won this round. The air grows warmer, the incense thicker, and you're starting to feel like you're drowning in ritual. You glance at a wall relief of a pharaoh, maybe your dad looking serene as he offers to Amun. You wish you felt that calm. Joke 3. You're pretty sure the gods invented priests to make sure even pharaohs have someone to answer to besides the mirror. You hand the sistrum back, your arm aching, and brace for the next demand. The priests may serve the gods, but you're the one serving their ambitions, and it's a heavier burden than any crown. You've just escaped the priest's incense-choked chamber. Their demands still ringing in your ears, but the palace offers no sanctuary now. You're thrust into the viper's nest of your own family. The royal apartments hum with tension, the air thick with lotus perfume and the sharper tang of betrayal. Your siblings, cousins, and even your own kids are circling, each one eyeing the throne like it's a prize at a festival. You're the pharaoh, the divine ruler, but blood ties don't mean loyalty here, they mean ambition, and you're dodging daggers sharper than any nobles. Joke 1. It's like a family reunion, except the potato salad's poisoned, and everyone's plotting to inherit the house. Family feuds were a pharaoh's constant headache, a fact mainstream history confirms. In the New Kingdom around 1400 BCE, dynastic struggles often erupted, with relatives like those of Amenhotep III maneuvering for power or even usurping the throne. You're meeting your younger brother, a charming guy with a smile too wide to trust, who's been cozying up to the Delta nomarchs. He bows, offering a polished alabaster vase, but you're not fooled. His last gift came with whispers of a coup. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some royal siblings gifted pet falcons, trained to carry messages, hoping to spy on you while looking loyal. Historians still argue whether these birds were clever spies or just fancy pigeons with bad aim. You sit on a cushioned throne, its ebony frame carved with cobras, and sip date wine, watching your brother's every move. The room's painted walls show serene family scenes, but the reality's messier. Your sister, a sharp-tongued woman with eyes like a hawk, lounges nearby, her son your nephew playing with a wooden toy chariot. She's pushing him as your heir. Never mind your own son, the one your great royal wife, remember her, is fiercely protecting. You nod at your brother's small talk, but you're scanning for hints of his next move. Is he bribing guards? Hoarding grain? You think back to the harem's intrigues. Those scheming concubines feel tame compared to this. The air shifts as your cousin, a minor prince with a knack for trouble, struts in. He's been spreading rumors you're soft on Nubia, undermining your desert patrols. Remember that sunburned chariot ride? You keep your face stone calm, but inside, you're fuming. You offer him a seat, your voice smooth as the Nile, and ask about his estates. He stammers, caught off guard, and you file that away for later. You're juggling family egos while keeping Egypt stable, and it's like balancing a pyramid on a reed. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means your family's the only one who can stab you in the back and call it a hug. A servant brings a tray of figs, and you hesitate. Family dinners have a way of turning deadly. You think of that Mytanian envoy's marriage proposal, another princess to complicate your hair, and wonder if your brother's in on it. You decree a festival to unite the family, hoping it'll keep them too busy to plot. They cheer, but their eyes say they're already scheming. The room feels smaller, the air warmer, and you're tempted to flee to the Nile's cool banks. Your sister's son drops his toy, the clatter breaking the tension, and you almost laugh. You rise, signaling the end of the audience, but the weight of their ambitions clings like damp linen. A wall relief shows a pharaoh, maybe your grandfather, embracing his kin, but you know better. Blood's thicker than water, but ambition's thicker than both. Joke 3. You're pretty sure the gods invented family to make sure even pharaohs know what a real headache feels like. You step into the corridor, the scent of lotus fading, and brace for the next betrayal. Your throne's yours for now, but family makes it feel like a borrowed seat. You're back in the palace now, the Nile's muddy scent still clinging to your skin as you step into the chaos of the royal harem. The air is thick with perfume, jasmine, myrrh, and something sweeter like overripe figs. Laughter and soft music drift through the courtyard, where your wives and concubines lounge under palm frond canopies. It sounds like a paradise, right? Wrong. This place is a labyrinth of ambition, jealousy, and whispered plots, and you're the prize, you're the target. Every smile hides a motive, every glance a scheme. You're supposed to keep the peace while ensuring your bloodline thrives, but one misstep, and you're dodging daggers, literal or otherwise. Joke 1. It's like managing a reality show, except the drama's real and the eliminations aren't always metaphorical. The harem was a cornerstone of pharaonic life, a fact mainstream history underscores. By the New Kingdom around 1500 BCE, pharaohs like Ramses II had dozens of wives and concubines, producing heirs to secure the dynasty and alliances. You've got your great royal wife, the queen whose son should inherit, but the other secondary wives, foreign princesses, are all angling for their kids to wear the crown. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some concubines used love potions made from crushed lotus petals, and yes, crocodile dung, believing it could sway your favor. Historians still argue whether these potions were symbolic gestures, or if desperate women actually thought dung was the key to your heart. You weave through the courtyard, your gold sandals clicking on the tiles. A Mitannian princess, sent to seal a treaty, offers you a cup of pomegranate wine, her eyes sharp as she gauges your mood. You sip cautiously, aware that accidents happen in harems. Another wife, an Egyptian noble's daughter, is playing a harp, her fingers dancing over the strings, but you catch her glancing at the Mitannian with a look that could curdle milk. You're supposed to be the divine lover, but mostly you're a referee in a game where everyone's playing for keeps. Your great royal wife, draped in linen so fine it's practically transparent, beckons you over. She's your partner in power, but even she's got her own agenda. Her son's your heir, and she'll do anything to keep it that way. You sit on a cushioned bench, the air cooling as servants fan you with ostrich feathers. The music's soothing, but the tension's not. You overhear a whisper about a concubine bribing a servant to slip something into a rival's food. Poison? A laxative? You don't want to find out. You signal your trusted guard, a hulking man with a scar like a crescent moon, to keep an eye on things. Joke 2. Being a pharaoh means your love life comes with more plot twists than a soap opera, and way less popcorn. You try to focus on the harp's melody, but your mind's on the bigger picture. The harem isn't just about romance, it's politics. Every child born here could strengthen an alliance or spark a feud. That Mitannian princess? Her father's a king who'll expect her son to get special treatment. The Egyptian noble's daughter? Her family controls half the delta's grain. You're juggling their ambitions while trying to keep your dynasty intact. You think back to the Nile ritual, remember that grain you tossed to Hapi? You're starting to feel like you're tossing your sanity into this harem's chaos too. A young concubine approaches, offering a lotus flower, her smile too sweet to trust. You accept it, but your fingers linger on the stem, checking for hidden thorns. The harem's beauty is a trap, a glittering cage where loyalty is as rare as a cool breeze. You glance at your great royal wife, who's watching the concubine like a hawk. You're supposed to be a god, but right now, you're just a man trying not to spark a royal catfight. Joke 3. You wonder if the gods invented harems to remind pharaohs that even divinity can't handle a room full of exes. You rise, nodding to the women, and head for the palace's quieter halls. Knowing the harem's intrigues will follow you like a shadow. You've escaped the harem's perfumed chaos, but there's no rest for a pharaoh now. You're knee-deep in the obsession that haunts every ruler, your afterlife. You're standing in a torchlit chamber beneath the palace, the air cool and musty, like a forgotten cellar. Architects and priests surround you, unrolling papyrus plans for your tomb, a sprawling complex meant to secure your eternal glory. Every detail chambers, traps, treasure recess your responsibility, because if your mummy's not comfy in the afterlife, you're basically screwed for eternity. The weight of immortality presses harder than that gold collar you're still wearing. Joke 1. It's like planning your dream home, except the Fi's non-existent, and the neighbors are all dead. Tombs were a pharaoh's ultimate flex, a fact mainstream history drives home. Since the Old Kingdom, around 2600 BCE, rulers like Khufu poured resources into massive burial complexes, like the Great Pyramid, to ensure their spirit thrived in the afterlife. You're sketching out a labyrinth of chambers, each one to be filled with gold, food, and shabti figurines to serve you in the next world. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some pharaohs included model boats in their tombs, hoping to sail the cosmic Nile with the gods, as if eternity needed a yacht. Historians still argue whether these boats were symbolic, or if you genuinely thought you'd need a paddle in the afterlife. You trace a finger over the papyrus, eyeing the planned false corridors to fool tomb robbers. The architect, a nervous man with ink-stained hands, points out where your sarcophagus will sit, surrounded by spells carved in hieroglyphs. The priests nod, muttering about Osiris and the field of reeds, but you're distracted by the cost. Gold, alabaster, thousands of workersits, a budget that'd make a modern CEO faint. You're supposed to be divine, but right now, you're just a guy wondering if you can afford eternity. The torches flicker, casting shadows that dance like ghosts, and you shiver despite the heavy linen kilt. The head priest hands you a clay model of a shabti, a tiny servant statue meant to do your chores in the afterlife. It's cute, in a creepy way, but you're not sure 200 of them will be enough to keep your eternal estate running. You think back to the harem's drama member, that Mitannian princess's sharp-eyed smile. You half wish you could send a shabti to deal with her instead of you. The architect drones on about ventilation shafts, but your mind's on the bigger picture. If your tomb's not perfect, your car might wander, lost forever. No pressure, right? You nod at the plans, trying to look confident, but the details are dizzying. Trapdoors to crush thieves, hidden rooms for your favorite chariots, and don't forget the sacred oils to keep your mummy fresh. Joke 2. You're starting to think the afterlife's just a cosmic HOA with stricter rules than Memphis. The priests keep chanting, their voices a low hum that's almost soothing, but you're too stressed to relax. Every decision here is a gamble. Build too big, and you bankrupt the treasury. Build too small, and the gods might snub you. A servant offers you a cup of date wine, and you sip it, savoring the brief sweetness. The chamber feels smaller now, the stone walls closing in like the weight of your legacy. You glance at the papyrus again, spotting a sketch of your sarcophagus, carved with your face in serene perfection. It's flattering, but also a reminder. You're planning your own funeral while still alive. Joke 3. Being a pharaoh means you're the only one who gets performance anxiety about your own death. You hand the model shabti back, its cold clay grounding you, and signal the architect to continue. The afterlife's waiting, and you've got to make sure it's ready for you, because the gods, like those nobles back in the throne room, aren't known for second chances.